Epidemiologist joins us now live on 680 CJOB. Good to talk to you. Thank you so very much for joining us.
It's always my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
In the 4 o'clock news, the description of the vaccine soup that we have right now, Pfizer, BioNTech, the approval. This is a targeted vaccine for BA4, BA5 strains of Omicron. How important is today's announcement?
It's pretty important. Now, currently we have the BA1 tuned bivalent vaccine available in Canada, and that's pretty good. The difference between this one and the BA5 tuned one is actually quite small when it comes to protection against Omicron in general. However, what's coming down the pipeline is probably a new set of variants, in particular one called BQ1.1, which is a little scarier, and it's a descendant of BA5. So the more protection you have against BA5, the more protection you likely have against this new variant. So I think this is an important announcement.
Take a moment and explain how these new variants keep on coming back. You've always told us that this is far from over, and hopefully by 2023 we have the vaccine developed. But take us through how these variants keep on coming back at us.
Everything alive is evolving. That includes viruses, which are a special kind of organism. And because everything is mutating all the time, there are cells in our bodies that are mutating all the time, but not every mutation is advantageous to the organism. Most of them actually die because of the mutation. Occasionally, one pops up that is fitter than the other ones, meaning it just has advantages. And those advantages could be it's more infectious, it's more lethal, whatever it might be. It's just that the more opportunity we have for these viruses to replicate and transmit and infect other people, the more likely these random mutations will find one that is more fit. That's what's happening. There's so much transmission, so much infection happening that the virus has the opportunity to find more versions of itself that are problematic for us. So long as we allow unfettered transmission to take place, these new variants will continue to arise.
Do you predict that this will wind up becoming like a flu shot, where you're getting into the flu shot campaign, and we know every year they watch the Southern Hemisphere and try and see what's circulating there so they can formulate that flu shot that has multiple strains in it? We don't even give it a second thought. Down the road, could you see that it's tweaked a little bit and perhaps there's this BA5 and you know, versions of it and other versions all into one shot that we get hopefully just once a year?
I think that is the near future, and we're always going to be a little bit behind the virus because it takes time to produce these vaccines while the virus is still mutating. So we're always going to be one step behind. However, if we develop these intranasal mucosal vaccines that stop transmission, and we develop these new pan-coronavirus vaccines, which should be good for all variants, present and future, then we don't need these multivalent ones coming up. But that's in the further future probably. But yeah, in the near future, the best strategy is to have multivalent vaccines like we have for the flu. That's within our technological purview, and it's certainly doable politically and within our resource structure as well.
With us is Raywat Deonandan from the University of Ottawa. He's an epidemiologist. When you are looking at the study of disease, which is what you've been tasked with doing all this time, do you look at the human behavior? Because I'm wondering, we've talked a little bit about vaccine fatigue. We heard that from Dr. Howard New out of Ottawa today saying, listen, we know you're kind of tired of it. But because this is such a disease that is changing, this is kind of how it's going to be. How do we get over that vaccine fatigue?
It's curious, right? Vaccine fatigue is a term we made up, and it's the result of a set of individuals expressing discontent with the way in which we've unrolled public health. We forget that much of the world is desperate to get these vaccines. Much of the world is desperate to get any vaccine, frankly. We are privileged to have so many tools at our disposal. So I think what we're lacking here is a finesse of communication, of explaining to the world that, in fact, this is not a hardship. Wearing a mask is not a hardship. Taking additional steps in our life to protect others is not a hardship. Rolling up our sleeve once every few months is not a hardship. But we do have to also explain that there are risks associated with sticking a thing in your arm. It's just that the risks associated with the disease you're trying to prevent are much greater. So what we have to do is unroll always evolving communications campaign to be honest, transparent with the population and speak to everybody at a level at which they can understand.
Well, and unfortunately, we don't seem to understand unless it's a crisis, unless we're out there every day saying X number of people have it, X number of people have died from it. All provincial governments have gotten away from that type of communication system. And so now, despite the fact that 17 Manitobans in the past week or so here have passed away as a result of this, it really is, Raywat Deonandan, out of sight, out of mind. And for much of us, it's life per usual.
It's concerning. It's concerning also for other biomedical challenges that are coming down the pipeline. These include Ebola, Marburg virus, cholera, polio even. The amount of apathy I'm seeing around the world with these new challenges is concerning. This should not be us. We are better than this. Our values are about protecting each other and protecting our society. So we have to get back to those core values and really embody them, communicate them, and express them more cogently. And we've failed at that for the last couple of years.
As we move forward, what's next? What are you looking at ahead? Because I know you are trying to predict future trends.
Well, it looks like the reproduction number globally is hovering around 1. So those are strong signs of endemicity, meaning that this disease might be settling into a place where it's comfortable. However, there are new variants coming. So variants are coming faster than they have been in the past. And it's not just one variant that will be dominating anymore. It looks like 1 or 2 or 3 might be circulating at all times. So there's one that I mentioned that is concerning called BQ1.1, which is more contagious than the current BA5 version of Omicron. And beyond that, there's one called XBB, which is even more contagious, and that's in Bangladesh and East Asia. That makes it here, that'll become dominant. That means we're probably looking at another wave right now, peaking sometime in January, according to some models. Is it an existential threat? No, most people will not die of it. We're going to probably hold it around 40 deaths per day in Canada, which is still not good, but that seems to be where we're plateauing. But I have some strange faith that sometime next spring, this will be in better control once we have more population immunity, better vaccines, and better vaccine uptake.
The always optimistic Ray Deonandan, thanks for joining us this afternoon. Appreciate it ahead of Thanksgiving, and the very best to you and your family.
My pleasure. Thank you.
He's from the University of Ottawa. He is an epidemiologist.